Two names, one myth, almost entirely invented. You know the story, the getaway cars, the doomed romance. Hollywood made them beautiful, rebellious, untouchable. But the real Bonnie and Clyde? Broken, desperate, responsible for 13 deaths, 9 of them cops. The girl could barely walk in their final months. The guy had been assaulted in prison. None of that makes the film. And the reason why says more about us than it ever did about them. Right now, true crime is bigger than it's ever been. Podcasts, documentaries, Netflix series. We consume real stories of real people constantly. And yet, Bonnie and Clyde remain the one case where fiction completely swallowed the fact. The 1967 Arthur Penn film, starring Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty, didn't just dramatize their story, it replaced it. It won 2 Academy Awards and rewired how an entire generation saw Depression-era outlaws. From that point on, their names became shorthand for reckless, passionate love. The music references, the fashion, the couple who call themselves their own Bonnie and Clyde. But the actual historical record, the FBI files, the survivor testimonies, the crime scene evidence, tells a different story entirely. Something darker, sadder, and far more uncomfortable than any screenplay dared to show. Because the truth doesn't sell romance, and romance is what people came to buy. So, who were they, really? The answer starts with a girl who was already drowning before she ever met him. Bonnie Parker was 19 when Clyde walked into her life in January 1930. She wasn't free-spirited. She wasn't chasing adventure. She was already married to a convicted murderer named Roy Thornton, and she never once filed for divorce. She wore his wedding ring until the day she died. She was a waitress, 5 feet tall, scraping by in Dallas during the worst economic collapse in American history, when unemployment hit 25% nationally and entire families were living in roadside camps. She wrote poetry, dark, unflinching poetry about death. Weeks before her killing, she wrote a poem predicting exactly how she and Clyde would die. Almost line for line accurate, she knew. She went anyway. And you have to ask yourself, what kind of life do you have to be living to make that choice feel like the only one left? But to understand that, you first need to understand what prison did to Clyde, and why nobody wants to talk about it. Clyde didn't start as a killer. He started as a malnourished kid from a Texas sharecropping family who stole turkeys and secondhand cars to eat. Then came Eastham Prison Farm. Between 1930 and 1932, Clyde was locked inside one of the most brutal penal institutions in American history. Inmates worked in the fields at gunpoint. Beatings were routine. And Clyde was repeatedly sexually assaulted by another prisoner, a situation so unbearable he asked a fellow inmate to sever 2 of his own toes to escape the work detail. He got out, but not as the same person. Former Texas Ranger Frank Hamer said Clyde left Eastham with murder in his heart, not romantic rebellion, not ideology, pure, targeted rage at a system that had already destroyed him. That changes everything. Because what came next wasn't outlaws versus the establishment. It was something far more personal and far more dangerous than the posters ever let on. Here's the number that collapses the entire myth: 13. Bonnie and Clyde's gang killed at least 13 people between 1932 and 1934. 9 of them were law enforcement officers, working men, small-town cops, and highway patrolmen with families waiting at home. One was a 60-year-old constable named Cal Campbell, shot at point-blank range during a routine stop in Commerce, Oklahoma. He'd done nothing except approach a suspicious vehicle. He bled out in a field. No film version includes Cal Campbell. No poster. No anniversary retrospective. Because victims don't fit the narrative, and once you see that gap, you start noticing just how many other gaps there are. Like what their day-to-day life actually looked like, because it was nothing like what you've been shown, and what it actually was makes the romance impossible to hold on to. You picture open roads and getaway thrills. The reality was a moving prison. The Barrow gang lived in stolen cars, permanently, for months. They drove up to 400 miles a day, sleeping in shifts on cramped back seats, eating cold food, rotating through stolen vehicles every few days. In the summer of 1933, a stolen car veered off a bridge near Wellington, Texas. Battery acid spilled directly onto Bonnie's right leg, burning through skin and muscle. She never fully healed. In their final months, witnesses described her as unable to walk without help, carried between the car and wherever they stopped. National Geographic's documentation of Depression-era outlaw conditions notes that the physical toll on fugitives living in vehicles was severe and often permanent. She was 23 years old, carried like an invalid, living in a stolen car and knowing exactly how this would end. That's not a love story. And when you see what the ending actually looked like, you'll understand why they kept it out of the film entirely. On May 23, 1934, on a back road in Bienville Parish, Louisiana, a six-man posse opened fire without warning. No verbal command, no attempt at arrest. 130 rounds in under 20 seconds. The official justification, too dangerous to approach. But declassified documents and later testimony revealed something uglier. Frank Hamer had been publicly ambushed and humiliated by the Barrow gang, his reputation shredded in the press. What happened on that road wasn't just law enforcement doing its job. It was a sanctioned execution carried out by men with personal scores to settle. Then came the part nobody puts in the documentary. The bullet-riddled car was put on public display across Louisiana. Crowds paid admission to see it. Children posed next to the holes. The bodies had already been photographed on the road, still in blood-soaked clothes, turned into a paying attraction before they were even in the ground. That detail is the most honest thing about this entire story. Not the romance, not the rebellion, the crowd, the ticket price. The children are smiling for photographs next to the proof of two people's deaths. We didn't fall in love with who Bonnie and Clyde were. We fell in love with who we needed them to be. Two people destroyed by poverty and violence long before they ever hurt anyone else. We erased that part, polished it into a poster, and in doing so, quietly erased every single person they left behind. The myth survived. The truth just bled out on a dirt road in Louisiana, 90 years ago, with nobody watching.